In 1481, a group of monks near Florence hired Leonardo da Vinci to paint an enormous altarpiece. He agreed to finish it within 30 months. Then he filled the panel with swirling figures, ruined buildings, fighting horses, and enough preliminary thought to occupy a small government. Before the deadline arrived, Leonardo left for Milan. The monks waited. Leonardo did not return. Eventually, they hired someone else. This is the central problem of Leonardo's life. How did a man famous for doing almost everything complete so little? The short answer is that Leonardo was not merely making paintings. He was trying to understand every visible thing that might go into them. A face led to muscles. Muscles led to anatomy. A landscape led to geology, water, weather, and the possibility that humans might fly over it. The painting remained nearby, looking increasingly nervous. Leonardo was born in 1452 near Vinci, a Tuscan town west of Florence. He was the son of a notary and a local woman, but his parents were not married. This limited the respectable professions open to him. He could not simply inherit his father's career. Instead, he entered the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio in Florence, one of the busiest artistic businesses in Renaissance Italy. A workshop was not a quiet room where one inspired person stared nobly at a canvas. It was part school, part factory, and part collection of young men grinding pigments. Verrocchio's shop produced paintings, sculpture, metalwork, costumes, and decorations for public events. Leonardo learned to draw, model clay, prepare panels, and mix paint. He learned to study how light moved across surfaces. He also learned that art was physical work. Angels required carpentry. He became exceptionally skilled, but skill was not the same as reliability. The unfinished Adoration of the Magi reveals his method. Some figures are barely outlined. Others emerge from layers of shadow. Heads turn, hands reach, horses fight in the distance, and architecture rises behind the crowd. Leonardo was not coloring in a settled plan. He was thinking directly on the panel, revising the composition as new possibilities appeared. The abandoned work became a record of decisions that never quite reached a final decision. Around 1482, Leonardo moved to Milan. In a draft letter seeking employment from Ludovico Sforza, he emphasized military engineering, bridges, weapons, fortifications, sculpture, and, almost as an afterthought, painting. Renaissance patrons wanted beauty, but they also appreciated someone who claimed he could help with sieges. Leonardo understood the market. If you enjoy remarkable lives explained with drawings that have also made peace with incompletion, subscribe to Badly Drawn Biographies. Ludovico eventually commissioned Leonardo to create a colossal bronze monument to his father, Francesco Sforza, on horseback. Leonardo measured horses and studied their muscles. He designed casting equipment and built a clay model for a statue about 3 times life size. Years of work led toward one spectacular object. Then war arrived. The bronze was redirected to make cannon. When French forces captured Milan in 1499, Leonardo's clay horse was destroyed. The project produced no statue, only studies, and the faint historical sound of a patron changing priorities. Yet Milan also gave Leonardo one of his greatest successes. Between the mid-1490s and 1497 or 1498, he painted the Last Supper on the wall of a Dominican dining hall. Instead of showing 13 people sitting calmly for a sacred group photograph, he captured the instant after Christ announces that one of them will betray him. The apostles react in clusters. They question, recoil, accuse, and reach across the table. Christ remains still at the center, while the room appears to shake around him. Unfortunately, Leonardo wanted the detail and slow control of panel painting on a wall. Traditional fresco required pigment to be applied quickly onto wet plaster. Leonardo used a dry technique that allowed him to work gradually. It also allowed the painting to deteriorate gradually, followed by less gradually. Signs of damage appeared within decades. The work survived neglect, alterations, restorations, and bombing during the Second World War. Today, visitors are admitted in restricted groups because the masterpiece is also an elderly technical experiment attached to a wall. This is why calling Leonardo lazy misses the point. He worked constantly. Thousands of surviving pages contain studies of faces, plants, weapons, flowing water, flying machines, geometry, architecture, and lists of questions. His familiar mirror writing was probably not a secret code. Leonardo was left-handed and seems to have found writing from right to left comfortable. The notebooks were less a polished encyclopedia than a vast private workshop where ideas kept bumping into one another. He designed machines resembling wings, parachutes, armored vehicles, and giant mechanical devices. This has encouraged the popular image of Leonardo inventing the modern world several centuries early. The reality is more interesting and less tidy. Many designs were never built. Some would not have worked as drawn. Others developed ideas already circulating among engineers. Their importance lies in how Leonardo investigated motion. He studied gears, pressure, friction, balance, and the movement of air and water as related problems. He did not possess a collection of future gadgets. He possessed a method of looking. That method became most powerful in anatomy. Leonardo initially studied the body because painters needed to understand what existed beneath clothing and skin. Then the subject took over. In hospitals and medical schools, he dissected perhaps 30 human corpses. He examined bones, muscles, organs, the nervous system, reproduction, and the heart. He drew structures from multiple angles, peeled away layers, used cross-sections, and made transparent views. These were visual tools that anatomical illustration had barely begun to develop. His observations were extraordinary, but not infallible. When human evidence was unavailable, he sometimes transferred features from animals into human drawings. His famous image of a fetus includes details based on the anatomy of a cow. He understood much about the heart and its valves, but did not discover the full circulation of blood. Leonardo could observe brilliantly and still be trapped by older ideas. Genius did not provide immunity from being wrong. It mainly provided more elaborate notes about the difficulty. He planned to publish an illustrated anatomical treatise. He did not finish it. The studies remained among his private papers and were largely unknown for centuries. Had they appeared in print, they might have transformed European anatomy. Instead, one of history's most advanced medical projects became another magnificent stack awaiting organization. Leonardo's working life also depended on unstable patrons. Dukes fell, armies invaded, governments changed. For a period, he served Cesare Borgia as a military architect and engineer. He traveled through central Italy and produced remarkably accurate maps. Then, Borgia's political power collapsed. Leonardo returned to Florence, where officials commissioned him to paint the Battle of Anghiati in the council hall. He developed a violent knot of men and horses. He experimented with the wall and left the mural unfinished. It was later lost, surviving mainly through copies and preparatory drawings. During roughly the same period, he began the portrait now called the Mona Lisa. The sitter is generally identified as Lisa Gherardini, wife of the Florentine merchant Francesco del Giocondo. Leonardo used thin layers of paint to soften edges and create the smoky transitions known as sfumato. Her expression seems to change because the face is built from delicate shifts rather than hard outlines. Leonardo kept the painting with him instead of delivering it to the family believed to have commissioned it. He continued working on it over many years and carried it to France. The Louvre dates its execution from about 1503 to 1519 and describes it as still unfinished at his death. The most famous finished-looking face in art may therefore be another Leonardo work that never reached a moment when he was willing to stop. In 1516, Leonardo accepted an invitation from King Francis I and moved to Amboise in France. He was given an honored position as painter, engineer, and architect to the king. His health declined, and a report from 1517 mentions paralysis in his right arm. He continued designing buildings, festivals, costumes, and monuments. Meanwhile, assistants worked on paintings including the Mona Lisa and St. Anne. He died on May 2, 1519, aged 67. The popular story that Leonardo died in the king's arms comes from later tradition and should not be treated as secure fact. What is documented is that Leonardo arranged for his notebooks and drawings to pass to his pupil Francesco Melzi. Many were later scattered, lost, rebound, or separated. Thousands of pages survive, but they represent only part of what he produced. Leonardo left only a tiny number of surviving paintings, perhaps 15 at most, depending on questions of attribution and collaboration. Some are unfinished. One famous mural began failing almost immediately. The giant horse never reached bronze. The anatomy book never reached a printer. By ordinary measures of completed output, this is not an efficient career. But completion was not the only thing Leonardo produced. His unfinished works expose the machinery of attention. They show him asking how a shoulder turns, how water curls around an obstacle, how fear changes a face, and how light disappears into shadow. He kept crossing the boundaries between art and science, because, for him, those boundaries were not especially useful. Painting was a way to investigate nature. Investigation was a way to paint. Leonardo rarely stopped because every answer opened another question. That habit disappointed patrons, buried discoveries, and left major works stranded halfway between plan and object. It also produced The Last Supper, the Mona Lisa, and notebooks that still feel startlingly alive. His great failure was that he could not bring his curiosity to an end. His great achievement was much the same thing.